This stolen purse ended up changing the life of a homeless man. What would you do if you spent hundreds of dollars on a designer purse, only to have it stolen and then find it being used by a homeless person on the streets? This odd situation is what happened to Kaitlyn Smith, who got her purse stolen only a few days after she got it, and had to confront a man named Aeric McCoy about the purse he was carrying, as it looked crazily similar to hers. Little did either of them know, their encounter would have a major impact on many lives. Kaitlyn Smith had her car broken in. The burglars not only took every valuable she had in it, they also found the recently copied spare keys to her house in the glove compartment. The burglars used the keys to break into her house in the Patterson Park neighborhood of Baltimore, Maryland. Kaitlyn later found out that the burglar couldn't take anything more than her purse as her dog scared them away with its barking. After canceling all of her credit cards, she made peace with the fact that her newly purchased bag was probably gone forever. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of town, Aeric McCoy, who was a homeless heroin addict, recently had his sleeping bag stolen from the abandoned house he used to crash in at nights. Aeric gained his life by working for drug dealers. His payment included both cash and product to get him by, but his job was starting to take a toll on his life. I didn't care about my life. I was in so much pain mentally. I felt like my life had no value, he recalled to the Baltimore Sun. Later that week, when McCoy staggered into an alley behind an abandoned row house to get high, his eyes spotted a fancy purse on the ground, and surprisingly, it was in good condition. Knowing how it felt to be a victim of robbery, Aeric decided to find whoever the purse belonged to. It was crazy. Like normally, I would have just sold it. But this time for once, I told myself, "Aeric, do the right thing. You gotta find the owner and give it back," he said. After opening the purse looking for anything that could lead to its owner, McCoy found an electric bill with a home address. He directly assumed it was the address of the owner. I went to Upton Market and asked a guy to Google the address for me. I was devastated when I learned how far away it was. I said, "There's no way I can walk that far," McCoy said. Despite the fact that the address was on the other side of town, he decided to carry the bag and take it back to its rightful owner, buying a subway pass from a stranger to get there. On his way, many women gave him odd looks when they saw McCoy carrying the purse. Some even offered to buy it from him. Considering his situation and his drug abuse problem, refusing their persistent offers took a lot of courage and willpower to do. I kept walking. I was exhausted and worn out, and I sat on some steps and started crying. I just missed an opportunity to sell the purse and get some money, you know? So I cried for a while. Then I put on some sunglasses and kept walking, McCoy recalled. Later that day, as Kaitlyn was walking down the street on her way to a friend's party, she saw a man in tattered clothes hustling towards her. When the man got close, she was shocked to see that he was carrying her stolen purse. Happy to have finally found her lost purse, Kaitlyn offered to buy it from him. I told her this purse belongs to a lady that I'm trying to return it to, and that's when she said she was the owner of the purse, McCoy recalled to WBAL. Smith was so grateful for McCoy's gesture. He had walked across town just to turn her purse. "I just thought doing a nice thing would bring me some hope because I'm feeling really hopeless," he told her at the time. After she heard a little about his story, she gave McCoy a brand new sleeping bag, some new clothes, a backpack, and a flashlight. Since he had to have a very long walk to the other side, she also gave him a ride back to the neighborhood he came from. And it was during that ride that she got to know even more about Aeric's tragic story. Kaitlyn was so moved by McCoy's determination to return the purse that she wanted to know how she could possibly return the favor. "I offered to help him get a job with my contractor, who was looking for a day laborer," Smith recalled to CBS 8. "He was like, 'As sweet as that offer is, I wouldn't want to disappoint you.'" It was then that McCoy revealed he was a heroin addict. Aeric McCoy had been living on the streets for almost a year. Even though his drug addiction wasn't new, he was able to stay sober before for 8 whole years. During his sober years, Aeric started his own landscaping business. He had his own home, a great car, and even had a daughter to care for. In 2012, a car accident wrecked his life and took everything he cared about. In his recovery from the accident, Aeric became addicted to the painkillers. That, coupled with his loss of income, led him straight to a heroin relapse. Things went downhill from there, with him losing every single penny of his savings and eventually his home too. McCoy was living with a relative who eventually kicked him out because of his drug abuse. His drug addiction kicked him out to the streets, becoming a homeless man living in the streets, who eventually got involved with drug dealers that only exacerbated his addiction. After learning that McCoy was a drug addict, Kaitlyn asked him one simple and direct question: "Do you want to be a drug addict anymore?" He said, "No, I have a daughter and she's so smart, and I want to be a part of her life, and I'm miserable," Smith recalled to CBS 8. McCoy added, "2 weeks before I met Kite, I was like, God, I can't do this no more. I cannot live like this no more." McCoy said that he wanted to be sober again. He had to stop using drugs as his life was going downhill, and he knew it was time to put an end to all of that. He knew a rehab facility in Florida, however, he had no means to get there. When Smith dropped McCoy off, she left him her phone number. "I told him that if he ever wanted to go to that facility, I would buy the plane ticket as a thank you for returning my purse," Smith told CBS 8. Several days later, on a borrowed phone, he called to say he had contacted the rehab facility in Florida and they had a space for him. If he could get there, Smith recalled. The day he finally called her also happened to be Father's Day, and he said that his daughter's mother agreed to let him see her if he sought treatment. So the next day, Smith drove McCoy to the airport with a ticket to Florida. It was about time he got treated to get his life back on track. After Aeric started his treatment in Florida, he called Kaitlyn every day to keep her updated on his progress. In the process of talking about what he was going through, McCoy and Smith's friendship grew bigger. Kaitlyn went one step further and started a GoFundMe page on McCoy's behalf to fundraise money for his transition out of rehab. After she learned that the recovery process wasn't seamless, she got frustrated that there wasn't more help for those in recovery after their programs ended. "When he was in treatment and he called me every day, I would look forward to those phone calls and he would tell me a lot, and I learned about his story," Smith recalled to CBS 8. By sharing McCoy's story on GoFundMe with her friends and family, she was able to raise the money he needed to cover his rehab expenses and get him back on his feet. It didn't take long for McCoy to find out about everything Smith was doing to help him. At one point, McCoy sent his new friend a drawing with a letter to thank her for all her efforts. He also wrote, "If you ever start to feel stressed out because of me or like a burden, don't hesitate to tell me." Smith's support for her new friend was unwavering. Not only did she plan to see him through 90 days in recovery, she also realized that addiction was actually as a disease and not a fault of character. "This one person is helping me understand why there are so many relapses. So the reason people should help this one person is because this will help a lot of other people. I'm offended by the lack of support that happens after 28 days," Smith told WBAL. Smith supported McCoy's sobriety through his first 90 days and more, all the while growing their friendship and keeping their family and friends updated on his sobriety progress. After 28 days in rehab, Aeric was moved to a halfway house that cost $450 a month, even though the house was close to the facility, allowing him to keep seeing his doctors. He was still released without any guidance, which turns out to be the case for many people who leave rehab. "I really don't understand how people without resources bridge that gap," Smith told WBAL, after dedicating many days trying to get McCoy's insurance reinstated. After McCoy was released from rehab, he was excited about the road ahead. The day he got out from the center, Smith posted an update on the GoFundMe page. He got Taco Bell, which he was really excited about, then borrowed the house bike and rode to the ocean. He said he took a swim and it felt like a baptism. In addition to that, both were astounded by the overwhelming support that they've received from people who empathized with McCoy's story. By day 4 of recovery, Aeric was doing his best to stay focused. He had multiple rides to the beach, did tons of yard work to keep himself busy, and attended daily meetings. "I can tell you that Aeric is really determined to stay sober, and that in this instant friendship, we had to fully commit to the virtue that brought us together: honesty. We keep it 100, tell no lies, and give each other the benefit of the doubt, Smith wrote. At that point, McCoy also started envisioning his future with complete sobriety. One of his family friends, who also happened to be a former addict, told McCoy and Smith that during recovery, visualizing a time in your life before drugs that you want to reclaim can be of great help to keep the focus and fight any desire in going back to drug use. So Aeric visualizes rebuilding his lawn care business and having a house where his daughter can have her own room. With that goal in mind, we're taking it one day at a time, Smith wrote. While Aeric was staying in Florida, Smith's GoFundMe page raised thousands of dollars in support of McCoy's recovery. Smith wasn't the only one updating donors on McCoy's progress. He himself also sent messages to his supporters as well. He said that above all things, it was Smith's compassion that has given him hope. The reason I speak of hope is because I remember the moment I got it. It was when she told me that she would help by sending me to rehab, McCoy wrote. McCoy continued, "We hope for lots of things in life. To be successful, to get that better job, to find love, and much more. I didn't have any hope to do any of these things. I knew that without breaking the bondage of addiction, those things were impossible. All I wanted was not to be sick every day. Today, I have hope." Even though he had a lot of hope to cling to, McCoy's halfway house offered very little in terms of medical and mental guidance. It was then that they decided to use some of the funds to bring him back home to Baltimore, where he would get the support and assistance he needed to go through his recovery phase. When McCoy returned to Baltimore, he faced even more obstacles. He had a big number of fines to pay off, but he struggled to land a job because of his history of addiction. And when that wasn't an issue, his lack of transportation was the problem. But despite everything, his friendship with Smith endured as she continued to advocate for his sobriety. Using the collected funds, McCoy enrolled in a 90-day outpatient program at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. The two of them also worked on rebuilding McCoy's landscaping business. It wasn't long before things started to get better for Aeric. His life was finally getting back on track. Not only was he able to reclaim his old equipment from his previous landscaping business, he was also able to repair his old truck in order to get around. Aeric continued to update his supporters on his progress. "If you're willing to continue helping me in my recovery, please consider hiring me to rehabilitate your property after the winter season. I do professional work and I'd love the opportunity to show my expertise and gratitude to you through landscaping." But life has its own twisted way of showing support. Shortly after getting his truck repaired, Aeric ended up in another accident due to a seizure while driving. Even though doctors weren't able to place the cause of the seizure, a toxicology report confirmed that McCoy wasn't under the influence of drugs during the incident. "I was really depressed about losing my truck, but I am a firm believer that things happen for a reason, and Kite is also," McCoy wrote after his accident. McCoy remained headstrong in his recovery in spite of every obstacle he faced since he came back home. When he reached a year of sobriety, Smith was happy to report that he was busy working in landscaping, looking healthy and feeling happy. "We are very good friends, and I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that we met for many reasons. One reason is that Aeric helped me to understand that addiction is a disease to be treated like any other. It's not a lifestyle choice," Smith wrote. As of June 2019, McCoy has been sober for 2 years. To him, finding Smith's purse was an act of divine intervention, a simple event that saved his life and changed it for the better. It changed it to one he never expected to have. As for Kaitlyn's part, she says her life was changed drastically as well. Her friendship with McCoy not only opened her eyes to what addiction really is, it gave her a life purpose that she was determined to pursue. In April, she quit her job in medical sales to do something even greater. Smith started working as an addiction treatment consultant with Delphi Behavioral Health Group, a group that runs a network of rehab facilities throughout the country. "Now I go into hospitals and talk to clinicians, social workers, and case managers to help them identify people with addiction," Smith tells CBS. But changing her career and advocating for McCoy through GoFundMe aren't the only things that Smith has been moved to take on. A year later, in 2018, Kaitlyn launched her own advocacy group called Advocate, spelled with 2 A's in honor of her friend Aeric and as an homage to Alcoholics Anonymous. The Advocate group's purpose is to support people who suffer from addiction by helping them to find solutions for transportation, housing, and employment after their recovery.